Hi there. Welcome to Have It All. I am your host and the creator, Anna K. Morris, and I'm thrilled that you're here because if you are here, it means that you're interested in having it all, or maybe you're curious about what I and my guests have to say about having it all. Can we? Do we know what it is that we want? And once we get it, are we wise enough to know that we have it? And are we worthy enough to hold on to it? That's what we'll be exploring on the podcast. I'm so happy you're here, and let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Have It All podcast. I am your host, Anna K. Morris, and I am so excited to be here with my friend, Staci Berkovitz. And Staci, thank you so much for being here. I know that it's, our time is our most precious commodity. So the fact that you are here with us today means a lot. I know that you've been very busy. You were just telling me about your new job, which is super exciting. I think so good for our nervous systems to have the health insurance, have the paycheck, all of those things. So if you're an entrepreneur listening, there is no shame in also having a job. That's the perfect place to be. And you wrote a book that we're going to be talking about today, which I love the title. Just spoiler alert, it's called Naked at 50. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much. And thanks for calling out, if I can just say this real quick, for entrepreneurs. Because when I started my business after they laid off our department a year and a half ago, I really thought, honestly, that, I had two choices in life. I could be an entrepreneur or I could have a job, right? At that break point. And I got offered a job from the company that was buying out our wellness department. And I turned it down to do the entrepreneur path. And I sat with it for a little bit. And then I said, if this doesn't work out after 3 months, there's no shame. I'm not holding on to an expectation that this is going to have to look a certain way. And I lasted a year. And then I was like, I miss a regular paycheck. Not that my paycheck is a braggadocious one, but I miss a regular paycheck, and I miss, health insurance benefits. And so this job has been perfect. It's remote. It's all good. And I'm still able to do entrepreneur stuff. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. Well, I started a business when I was in pharmaceutical sales. I had a business for 4 years. I literally replaced my income. And then I got laid off, and then they paid me severance for like a year. And it was all perfectly divinely led. And I think that it was a really good time for me to explore, do I like being an entrepreneur? And it is massive self-growth. And that's the part that I think people mostly quit because it's like way too much growth, right?
Still be growing in that area. Yes. It's a lot of, it is such when you're working at a company, like you're a contributor, whatever your role is, you're contributing to the company. When you are an entrepreneur, you are the company. And it's like, if you don't do it, it doesn't get done. I know as businesses grow and you bring people on, it's different, but like really as an owner of a business, it's such a different mindset than a contributor to a business. And it's just such a different mindset. It's more of like, what will this business do for me? And as an entrepreneur, it's like, what can I do for my business to make it grow?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we'd said something before about like, our nervous system being regulated it's being said everywhere. I know that you've been in the wellness world for how long now? Ever?
13, 14 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So me too, about 16 years. And if we don't have like basic needs met, then nothing really works. Like your cortisol levels, like all of those things just don't work. And so just diving into that, I'm curious about what it's been like to be, an entrepreneur, going back to work, launching a book. I mean, you didn't just go back to work. You're also like in the midst of launching a book. The book came out, an unedited version, which I think is so fun because I I shouldn't say this. I want to write a book, and what makes me not want to write the book is the editing. So for me, hearing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. I could just have an unedited version. Like, I know you're like, no, it's not actually amazing because we really needed the edits, but it gives me some freedom as a future author to think like, oh, it could just be really messy and it's still fine. I bet people still love that book.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Yeah. So what we were talking about before we went live was, so this book is called Naked at 50. Do you want me to give background on it?
I want to stop talking. I just want to listen to you.
Oh, no. I don't know which, do you want me to tell you? So
take it away.
I was 49 last year. I know this is easy math. Now I am 50. I was 49 last year, and I was sitting with it kind of towards the end of 2023. My birthday was May of 2024. And I really sat with it, and I was like, oh crap, like turning 50 sounds Golden Girls old. Like, wasn't that Blanche's
really
age?
You thought the Golden Girls were 50?
Girl, they were. One of them was 50 or 51.
Shut up. I thought they were like 80.
I know. Okay, so you understand,
you
think of like Mrs. Garrett. I mean, like, think about some of the people like Alice from the Brady Bunch, what 50 was back in the day, right? And so the number has this connotation of like, you are old. And so when I was thinking,
I love that you did blinking lights. If you're not, you're probably not watching video because we're on a podcast, but you're like, you are old, flashing.
Yeah, lights, old, and then it dims and goes black. So I was like really dreading the 50. And so I really like sat with it, went through it, like let it, mess up my nervous system. No, it didn't get that bad, but I was really regretting it. And then I remembered my mom, who passed away at age 52, and she had cancer. She was diagnosed and passed away in 6 weeks from diagnosis.
Oh my God.
And I started thinking like, it's a privilege to live.
Uh-huh.
And we take it for granted because life does lifey things a lot. And so I really had to reset my mindset. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to make 50 my best freaking exciting year. I'm going to do 50 things I've never done before. And I have a podcast, and I started podcasting about it. And then I thought, no, there is a book here, because I feel like there's other women looking at Golden Girls and thinking, I can't believe I'm 50. And I really want people to get inspired. And so the book, basically, the first 2 parts of the book is like helping readers reflect. There's a lot of journaling in it and looking back at their life, and then looking forward. How do you want to walk into this decade? And really, any decade, it doesn't have to be 50, but any big transitional time. And then the last part of the book are the 50 new experiences that I've never done before. And that was the book, and it's been exciting. And what we were talking about before the call is, just to clue the listener in, is I decided, so you have several options when you're writing a book. You can self-publish, meaning just on your own. My sister wrote a book and she self-published. She did all the work. She did the research. She put it out there. And so she sold 13 copies of her book. It wasn't really to be a sale. Like she wasn't trying to be like this huge author. She just wanted, she's a songwriter. So she wanted her songs in a book, and that was her thing. And so when I was going to do my book, I was like, oh, cool. That's all I want to do too, because writing and publishing a book was my number 50 in my 50 things. And so it happened this year. So I knew I was up at a time crunch, and I still was like doing the experiences. And I have this really busy job now. So I looked at the whole picture, and I thought there are 2 ways to publish. I could start sending query letters out to publishing companies, but the turnaround time is about 2 years to get a book out there. And so that wasn't going to fit into my write and publish a book the year I turned 50. So it came down to like the self-publishing, either with my sisters, which was like do it yourself, which I didn't have time for, or hiring a self-publishing company. And so I did a ton of research. There are all kinds of different things self-publishing companies can do for you. They can, Anna, they can edit for you. They can design cover. They can do it all in one thing. They can do your marketing. I mean, all kinds of things. They can even have a coaches you through, whatever it is. There's all kinds of in the writing world. And so I interviewed a ton of them. I picked my top 3, and then I picked one publishing company because of my quick turnaround time. It was like, some publishing companies were like, well, that's kind of tight. And then some were like, I think we can make it happen. And then this one was like, we can make it happen. I was like, okay. So I paid what I needed to pay to get that done. And so I designed my cover, but I gave it to their designer and they cleaned it up and made it look much better.
Good.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
It's so grabby. Like it's, I mean, if you guys, you have to go see it. It's the website is it on the exhale.com? Is it there? Or is it naked?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. They can find it anywhere.
So it's naked and it's so good. Like even when I saw it, I was like, bold. I'm into it.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. I fell in love with the cover and they made it even prettier. And then they had an editor that has done the edits for me. But what we were talking about before the call is the messy part. So you can publish through, obviously you don't have a publishing company in your house. I mean, I would say 99.9% of people don't have like a printer press, right? Yeah. So you're going to have to use somebody to publish. So the two most popular ways to do that, and I'm sharing this because I am sure there's someone listening who's like, I want to write a book and give me the info. So you can go through Ingram Spark is a very popular one, or you can go through Amazon KDP. You can also be exclusive on Amazon KDP, or you can go through Ingram Spark and it funnels out to Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Walmart, all the things. And so I was like, well, through my publishing company, they said, let's do the pre-orders through Amazon, and then through Ingram Spark, we'll do the rest so it can get out there. But what happened is Amazon KDP no longer does pre-orders on print. They only do it on ebooks. And so my publisher, all they did was they put it in there. They put my unedited draft to hold the space because my release date wasn't until December 10th. So they put it in there and they're like, we have plenty of time. I know you're still, doing your experiences. We're going through edits, no problem. Then one day it all of a sudden showed up for sale as a pre-order on Amazon as a print. And I was like, huh? So I contacted my publisher because a friend of mine's like, I just bought your book. I'm like, you bought my book? Yeah. So anyway, they reach out. Amazon's like, that's impossible. And we're like, it's possible. So it went live. It became a bestseller in 3 categories on Amazon in a weekend.
I remember seeing all of that.
Which was incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Not expected at all. And then it disappeared. And we were like, what is going on? And Amazon's like, it's impossible. We don't let pre-order. I'm like, screenshot, like, here.
It's so possible. My friend has the book.
I know. I'm like, yeah. And then the book, and then the next week, a month before it was supposed to get sent out, the draft was published with the cover, missing chapters, not edited, to every single person who had pre-ordered it. So my messy, sloppy copy went out to the world and I was devastated.
Are you a perfectionist?
No, but it's a book. It's not like a blog post. Or
no, I know, but I just want to know, like, at what level does it impact you? Because, like, for a perfectionist, I'm just like, oh, that's like you're in the bed, like, you're not getting out. But like, I'm just curious what your threshold for all of this was.
Okay, that's a great question. I would say, like, I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist, but the amount of time, work, year of work. It was the grand finale of my year. It was money. It was all the things. It was my name on a book forever, a sloppy copy book forever. And so I sat in bed one morning speaking about it, and I was like, for 30 minutes, I was like so down. Like, I can't believe this happened. And then I was like, now you got to decide, like, now, am I going to let this ruin my day, week, month, year, my 50th year experience? Is this going to be the shadow over it? Because we allow, right? At the end of the day, we're like, we're going to allow what kind of cloud we want to stay, over our parade. And so is it still like, oh, yes, because people are still getting the draft copies, even though we have fixed it through Ingram Sparks. Amazon is still sending the draft copies because I think they hate me. But
to learn something else. We don't know what it is yet.
Well, one of my friends said something, and I've really leaned into this. She said, so many of the people who ordered this love you. Yeah. And think about that. If you were just like an author, a known author, I'm not a known author, but if you were a known author and, 10,000 draft copies got sent of whatever, and people were like, what the heck, right? It's a different response right? It's a different response. People for me were like, I'm so sorry. That's a bummer. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's okay. I'll save it. Maybe worth something. So, like all the things. And I was like, wow, I'm lucky to have a safe place to land. So we were talking, is there a silver lining in it? I think that's the silver lining is I have a loving community around me. And enough people bought the book to make a difference, to make it a bestseller, and enough people bought the book that love me. And I think maybe that's my biggest takeaway from this experience.
Well, and it really strikes a chord because I am a perfectionist, and so much like I have not done earlier when I look at my life because of the fear of like it being messy. And like I personally, as a person that would like to write a book, any books, love hearing that it's messy and you are living to tell about it. It didn't swallow you up in the bed and kill you, right? Like that you're able to bring some levity and some laughter to it and show up here and talk about it. And for me, it makes me think like, oh, that's not a faraway dream. That's really, and also like shit happens. And that it doesn't take away from the value that the book is or the experience that you had writing it. Because that's the juice, right? Like I've started books before and I have stopped writing them because I make it miserable. And I'm like, I'm not writing a book and having it be miserable. That I don't need. I should go get a job for that. Right. Let's make some money and do that.
Yeah. 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 Well, it's true, right? If you are a perfectionist and if it's not fun, because you're like, it was miserable, right? So if it's not fun, why do it? It's not a have to. You don't have to write a book. So like, why do it if it's not fun? But if there is something fun in your heart that's like guiding you to do it, which I mean, it guided me. And I wouldn't have thought like how this has all gone down has sure been a journey. I get asked a lot about the naked part. So I'm going to comment on this because I was telling you before, it's not a porn book. I didn't start an OnlyFans book, but
hey, no judgment. You ever listened, by the way, speaking of, since we're on a podcast, have you listened to the podcast, My Dad Wrote a Porno?
No.
Oh my God.
But after tell me now, what is it about?
It's his dad wrote a porno. It's this British guy. It's hilarious. So Derek and I did a travel trailer trip in 2018, just before COVID. And so we were driving like 6-8 hour days sometimes when we were, traveling, and I would need to keep him awake. So like my job was to feed him candy because he has a really hard time staying awake when he's driving, which is like actually not a good road trip. So I'd feed him candy, and then my job was to find the things to keep him awake. So I found this podcast. It's My Dad Wrote a Porno. They ended up going on tour all through the US and certainly England. And it's him and his two friends, a girl and a guy, and they read his dad's book that his dad wrote. And he's like this like proper British man with like a wife somewhere in England. And they read and comment on the book. And that is the show.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm listening to that tonight as I go to bed. So I can laugh and have weird fantasies.
So like no shame if you write a porno. Like I would also read that book. Like, cause I just did when I listened to that podcast.
You listened to that podcast. Well, okay. So this is not a porn book, but thank you for the encouragement. Maybe round 2 will be a porn book. Mm-hmm. Naked or really, truly, totally naked at 50. Okay. So naked. So here's basically what happened. I thought my book was going to be called The Year I Turned 50. That was what I envisioned.
Naked at 50 is way better.
It's better.
Way better.
That's the thing, right? We're talking about like, even when we were like entrepreneurs versus job, stop holding on to what you think should be and let it flow the way it should be. And this was such an experience in flow. And so I remember like kind of going like, that's going to be called The Year I Turned 50 and da-da-da. played with in Canva with different covers and all the things. And then I got to my last 10 experiences, and I spoke to a guy I briefly dated a year or two ago, and we were catching up, and I was asking him about this thing he did because I wanted to do it for one of my last 10 experiences. And he's like, well, read me what's on your 10. And so I read him through. One of it was bird watching. And he was like, you are not going to do bird watching for one of your last 10.
Yeah,
it's like,
makes me sad. That's why you thought you were going to be on the Golden Girls. There you go. I can see your fear right now.
I wanted to do this. I wanted to do things that I don't want everything to feel big, because that's not what life is. We're not jumping out of airplanes every day. I wanted it just to be new. So big, little, in between, right? So bird watching would have been like, little, but it would have been new. So anyway, he's like, you're not doing bird watching. Like, no. And so in my mind, I heard, Staci, that's not good enough, right? Like, very nice dad. So it wasn't my dad's voice, but for some reason it was like, you've got to do more. And I was like, no, like I'm a world traveler. I've done all these things, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's right. He's right. And so he mentioned something. I was like, no, I can't do that. He's like, you should go like, whatever he said. And I was like, I'm going to go to a nudist resort. Like at first, like, no way.
To get naked. Yeah, of course he did. Because he's ex.
Of course. But then I started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I booked a flight and I went to Colorado.
Oh, okay. A friend of mine just did this in California.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So I didn't want to see Jim from The Office. Yeah. So I just wanted to like make sure I wasn't running into anybody. I live in Texas, so I wanted to be out of state. And so I went to this little place.
What do you Google? Tell us what you Google when you're like, I just want to be naked with strangers.
Yeah.
Do you Google that?
I just Googled nudist resort, and here was my criteria. So it's gonna be different. I didn't want to see anyone I knew, which was like number one. I needed to be out of state, and I needed it to be affordable because I was going to be buying a plane ticket to go out of state. And so Colorado is close to Texas, and I needed the weather to be obviously okay to be naked. So I went to this place. I went to two places when I was in Colorado. One is called Mountain Air Resort. It's in Littleton, Colorado. It's on like 1,500 acres, and I went for the day, and it is a total naked resort. And you'll have to read the book to get the review or my review of it, but I loved it. It was so uncomfortably hard at the beginning and then so freeing by the end. Yeah. But my biggest thing when I first got there, because you have to you sign paperwork and then you have a tour of the facility, was seeing people. This is my very first naked experience, besides the lady giving the tour who was naked, was seeing people playing pickleball naked. Yeah.
A friend of mine that went in California, y'all should know each other. I'll make sure to introduce you later. But she teaches people to claim their voice and have TED Talks. So if you want to take this on the road with the TED Talk, she's your girl. And
she's already on my list for 2025. So yes, connect us.
Okay. Her name is Jen Oliver. Jen, do you know her?
No.
Oh, she's fantastic. But she was just saying this, that she was at a nudist resort. She like missed one of our mastermind calls because she was at this nudist resort. And the whole thing was that they were playing pickleball. Same. I don't know who infiltrated pickleball into these nudist colonies, but it seems to be the trend. Yes. Everything's just flopping around and everyone's having a great time.
I was like, how can you do it without a bra? I mean, my breasts are just normal size, but I was like, run without a bra. But it was very, and it was just like the most normal thing, but it was an amazing experience. And so I'm so grateful that, my friend was like, come on, Staci, push yourself. So when I knew that was happening, and I was really refining what my title was going to be, because it was coming up to like put it in, I was like, Naked at 50, because Naked at 50 to me originally meant starting fresh, starting new, being open, being reborn.
Yeah. Sure. That's what I thought.
You're like, that's what I thought. I didn't know you were actually naked before.
But I love that you were. I think it makes it even better.
It's multiple meanings.
This podcast show notes are going to be so good.
No pictures will be put in the bucket. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, it was so freeing. And I remember at the very beginning of that day, taking off all my, like, after the tour, I'm like, so what do I like go in a bathroom? Like, what do I do? She's like, wherever you want to take it, just go. Yes, it's all okay. You know, I was like, so I like went into my car and taking up my shirt, bra, and the pants and the panties, and all I kept on, because the first activity I decided to do was go for a hike, was my socks, shoes, and I had my backpack. So my little boobies were hanging out, and my cellulite, all the things. And I was like, cellulite is angel's kisses. Cellulite is angel's kisses. So
wait, where did that come from?
The nakedness?
Cellulite is angel's kisses.
My brain. That was
I was like, wait, where is that? I've never heard that before.
And now you have. And now when you see it, you can be like, angel, that person's been kissed by so many angels.
I love it.
Anyway, so I went hiking, and it was once you are like, holy shit, I am naked. Oops, can I cuff on your shirt?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm like, holy shit. That's twice. We have to edit it. I'm naked, and it feels kind of weird and kind of freeing. And so my first conversation with someone was like a 70-year-old man drinking his emergency drink as he was standing outside of his RV. And it was just like the most normal thing. There were two naked people, just naked and naked. That was us, just chatting away. So it was the whole day was just dreamy and magical in the, I did this.
You did that.
I did it. And then the next day I went to, because I was staying in Colorado Springs. So I drove back to my hotel. And the next day I went to a hot springs.
Oh, yeah.
Clothing optional. Now this place, so the first place was a family nudist resort. So I guess during the summer, there was a lot of kids. I went end of September-ish. So there weren't any kids at that time. But anyway, this place the second day was a clothing optional hot springs in the middle of nowhere. And you could only go as a man if you were with a woman.
Oh, yeah.
So I think for a lot of people that may be a comfortable, dipping your toe in the water, so to speak, literally and figuratively. But it was very strange there because a lot of people had their swimsuits on. Some were there without their tops and some were totally naked. And so I liked the first place better because I felt like we were all kind of on the same page. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. I did a naked thing. Now that I think about it, now that you're saying this, I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. There was a naked beach party when I was in Maui, and I was, of course, had a fabulous fling with a massage therapist there, and he took me, and I remember only being topless. And at some point, I remember thinking, well, this is real. I'm the weird one, that I still have my bottoms on when everybody else is just naked. I mean, people were hula hooping. There were fire. It was like a Burning Man kind of vibe on the beach, right? Maybe 500 people, something like that. And I eventually just took my swimsuit off because it's what's the point? You're just going to get sand trapped in it anyway. So it's way better to just not have it on. And it was only weird when people had swimsuits on.
Yes.
Totally.
It almost changes the playing field. I don't even know how to explain it.
No, it does. No, I get that completely.
Even though I felt like the nudist cult a little bit, when I was at the first place, because everyone's so happy and we're all naked, and I was like, is there juice? Are we going to be drinking Kool-Aid? Yeah. But it was also just this, we're all here. This is what we look like. We don't give a damn, whereas the second one it just had a different feel. They were both really cool in different ways, but I would go back to the first one before I do the second one again.
I think also what you're saying, Staci, is such a good metaphor, because when you are a person who's really willing to be naked, right? As a metaphor, I don't mean your actual experience, but when you are willing to be vulnerable, when you have the book, I mean, that is so naked, actually, that your book, I mean, it's actually perfect, and it needed to be that way because the name of the damn book is Naked at 50. And here your naked version of this baby book, Dream, all messy, all unedited, right, is just out there for the world to think whatever they're going to think. And instead, they just loved it.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, that was very poignant and very timely. So I so appreciate you sharing that extra silver lining with me, because that is such a, Yes to all you said.
Yeah. And the only time,
Perfect at 50.
yeah,
It
well,
wasn't perfect at 50.
and the thing is, the only time that being honest and vulnerable and that, like, I mean, I have two dogs sleeping underneath me right now, that like that pink underbelly, right, of all of us, is when we aren't met with it. And when I am in a conversation, and I'm sure you've had this experience, and you're like sharing really openly and honestly, and you can feel that that's not what the other person is doing or available for, it just doesn't feel good. Like, you can't wait to have that. I think it's why sometimes there's a lot of resistance around like cocktail parties, because everybody's got this like weird masky thing on. And I'm always the one like crying with somebody in the corner, like, because I just like only want to go deep. Like,
Same.
and
like
so
great
really,
leather, but let's go to that
yeah.
intersection.
And it sounds like that's really that moving metaphor for you, that like, here you are burying your soul and you just want to be with other people who are willing to be fully naked. Let's go and play pickleball. Right. I mean, because that's the thing. And then that other one is like really weird because like not everyone's on board. And so when there's that energetic disconnect, it's just not as enticing as when you're like fully in with people.
My gosh, I love the connection you made to the scrappy, the sloppy copy, the rough, all of it being like, well, that's all of us. We're that version too. We're an unfinished book. And we have good parts, we have bad parts, we have parts that need changing, we need parts that stay exactly as they should be, and it's all perfect. And so thanks for the reframe. That's a beautiful, who knew we would get there, right? Who knew we would get there?
I mean, you set it up. Like, I didn't know you were going to tell me about a nudist colony, but then honestly, the difference between the two is the nectar. Like, that you see it, oh wow, like that didn't feel very good. Well, why? Because people weren't fully in. And you're somebody that's like bearing your soul. And so that's I would say your probably your number one value is like being open and honest.
Thank you. I'm going to receive everything you're saying. And
yeah, got it.
You know what? I love it because I do affirmations every morning. I have a journal and I write in every morning. And since I started writing my book, well, actually, since I started doing the 50 experiences before the book even came, I was, writing about, just being open. And so these experiences would just come. Some of them were on a list of things I wanted to do, and some just came to me as the year came. But when I started writing the book, in my affirmations, I would write, let this inspire millions. Let this. And so in my book, I'm thinking it's going to be my words. It's my words that inspire millions. It's going to be my words. Then maybe it's the message of imperfection and just being okay being sloppy copy of a book, so to speak.
I mean, it's really brave. It's really brave. Like, you could go out there and get rid of all of them. You could. You probably had a way to like I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the book publishing world, but you could say, no, I don't want to be on your podcast. I want to wait until it's all fixed up and da, 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 da. Like, there are lots of ways this could have gone. I personally want the $12.99 like messy copy, because here's why. It now gives me permission to do it messy. And I am somebody that likes like a bow on it. And none of my life has ever worked like that. And when it has, I've been the most unhappy. So I know like it's the underbelly I'm looking for, but it can still feel really unsafe and like you're going to die, like I'm going to die. And that's just not true.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for all of that. Thank you for that perspective and for like honoring my experience, how it was. And isn't it fun? I think this is why conversations are so magical. And I feel like this whole conversation has been about flow. We talked about when we're an entrepreneur and we think we're flowing and we hit that dip. I know that we both have heard about the dip, and then you decide after the dip, was that dip to change my direction, or was that dip just to challenge me to keep going? And that's our own personal journeys to figure out. There's no wrong answer, but it's flow, right? It's figuring out your flow. And then it's like, do I stay an entrepreneur? Do I take a job? And it's flowing into what you're doing, or flowing to what I'm doing, or flowing with this, but it's allowing things to be. And it's deciding, just like that morning when I sat in bed, it's deciding what kind of cloud, if any, you're going to let over you. And when, for me, and it's felt very much like this with this book at the end, with all the edit problems, for me, it has felt so kicking against flow, trying to get it right. And everything else that's supposed to be, I've noticed in my life, when I'm not forcing things to happen, but I'm open and I'm working, but I'm not forcing it to look. I'm not trying to get here. And I'm not talking about like a clean kitchen, or something like that. I'm talking about that idea, and for whatever reason, that flight that I just can't find a good price for to go on that trip, or that guy that is so cute, why can't it work out? Whatever it is, we get so fixated with this. And really, and I know we both are believers in God and the universe, and like, let the flow just happen. Keep really shining and doing your thing and being raw and vulnerable and naked and playing pickleball without a bra and all the things, but like, go out there and just create this energetic joy within yourself. Keep doing things that you love and find fun and that are meaningful and you connect with. It doesn't mean you have to quit your day job. Sorry, Kathy. It doesn't mean you have to quit your day job to do all these, caterpillar. Yeah, you don't have to quit your day job, but you can, because if that's what's next for you and you're in a position and your nervous system feels great about it, quit your day job. But like, otherwise, what's next for you? It doesn't have to be that guy or that book or that.
And also, you went and got a job and you were still an entrepreneur. There's not the duality that we think that there is. It's everything. It's everything, right? And the only problem is when we think it's this or that. It's like, no, it can be both. You started a job and then you started writing a book. I mean, I don't know any author who's not an entrepreneur. In this day and age, right? Like, you're now shopping the book around, sharing it on social media. Like, that's entrepreneurship, guys. Same thing, right? You just had it show up in a different way.
Yeah. And what if I would have held on to, no, it has to look like this?
Boring.
Life has to have some spice. Anyway, thank you for asking me about the whole journey, because it has been a journey, and I really appreciate how our flow of our conversation has brought us past the naked pickleball to the connection of like messy, naked, raw, unfinished. That's us. That's who we are.
I mean, it really is. And honestly, like, it's the best part. When you look back on this book experience, I promise you, like, I've been coaching for almost 17 years, and I fucking promise you, this is going to be the thing that you remember. And you're going to be like, I can't believe that all that happened. And it was so great. And I survived it. And it was really cool. And then all these other things, like, we don't even know yet. But I know that you've already inspired me to get cracking on a book sooner than I would have, right? Just because of the permission slip to have, like, I'm like, oh, I could just write a first draft and be done. Great. I'll write a book tomorrow. I mean, nobody will read it. I'll be like your sister with the 13 copies, like to my mother. But I like, it's so important to remember that whenever it's not working, that's not a problem. It's only our resistance. And when we let go, and when we come back to love, when we come back to hope, to faith, whatever it is that resonates, the affirmations that you're doing, all of that, that's when we see that it's no longer in the windshield. It's actually over there in your blind spot. Like the guy who's so much hotter is right. He's his brother. It's not him who's going through a bad divorce. Right? It's like, no, it's not your business. It's this dreamy job that you do and like pays your bills in this abundant way and makes you feel so good and relaxed and you love your coworkers. God, I miss coworkers. Anyway, I just think that like it's all here for us if we're just willing to like set down how it has to be. And
yeah, it has to look this way, and then we become miserable.
And well done for you, because you just like, but you created all of that by even throwing your name in a hat to write a book and then to write it at 50 and then to write it with a, you know, a naked cover on there and have people think that maybe it's a porno, but no, it's not. And all the things. You're such an inspiration. This has been spectacular. Thank you 1 million times. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I love being in your presence. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Okay. So you guys can find Staci at ontheexhale.com. But most importantly, you want to go to Amazon, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, Blockbuster. No, they don't have Blockbuster anymore. What else is there? Craigslist. I don't know. Where are they selling your books? Not on Craigslist. You're going to get somebody naked if you go on Craigslist. And you're going to want to find Naked at 50. It's the $14.99 version. That is the edited version. And if you want to see, I'm just saying, if you want to see the $12.99 version, that's going to be like inspiring if you never want to see a fully edited book. Go get that one, which is, you know, I'm ordering that one.
But you'll be missing a couple, you'll be missing 5, but you'll get the nudist one, just not as edited.
I'm going to get both.
Okay.
That's the solution. Cause I'm also like, I want to see like how much, you know, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Go buy both books, everybody. It's $26. You can afford it.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. All right. Okay. I'll see you guys on the next podcast. Don't forget to go take a nap. It's the holidays. Like, I don't know what else to say. Go take a nap or a bubble bath so that you can feel like you have it all. Okay. I love you guys. Bye. Thank you so much for being here. It is an honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you as we expand in the world. What is it that we want? Do we believe that we can have it all? I hope this episode gave you some insights and some things to think about, and most importantly, some actions to go and take in your own life. If one of those actions is reaching out to me, I'm so thrilled and honored. You can always find me on my website, annakmorris.com. You can always send me an email, hello@annakmorris.com. DM, texting, if you have my number, any of that is great too. And I would love to be in touch with you and help you have it all. I love you and thank you so much for being here.